What you need to know. All right, so here's my agenda. Okay, why AI, you ask? Next, OpenAI. What is ChatGPT and who created it? A little bit of history about that. Next is using ChatGPT and ChatGPT Plus. What's the difference between those? GPT 3.5 versus 4, and kind of how's that different from the ChatGPT? How to talk to ChatGPT, prompt engineering. Talk a little bit about that. Plugins, which you may or may not be something that you've played with, and then sort of the last thing on the agenda is Bing, and what has Bing got to do with ChatGPT and OpenAI? Um, Another thing I should mention is that this is part of a series. I recognize some familiar faces, which means that some of you were here for the most excellent presentations the last 2 days by my colleagues, Linda Sodleski and Ellen. So in parts of this, I may try and tie some of what we've been doing together just a bit. So if there's a minute or two of something you heard the last couple of days, that's not completely unintentional. So you may see a little bit of something to do with imaging or a little something to do with presentations. This all kind of goes together because this is a series. And let's see, the other thing I wanted to make sure you knew was that please feel free to put things in the chat if there are questions you have. I'll also be looking for some kind of feedback along the way and your input into some of the chatting that we do. So do that. The other thing is we're always looking for ideas as to what it is you want to learn from us, because we are learning design. You can put that in the chat as well, or you can always write to learningdesign@umb.edu. That's our address for anything. Hopefully, anytime you need something from us, that's where you write. Okay, so on with the show. Why is AI so hot now all of a sudden? Because AI has been around for years, okay? This is not something new. It's not like artificial intelligence all of a sudden came up in the last year. And AI could always identify any class inputs. You could always teach, how to do things, give information to computers, and that computers could kind of learn and do things. But what's new is this generative AI, which means that computers are creating new content that didn't exist before. They're creating photographs of people and things that didn't exist in the world. They're writing poetry that wasn't there before, or essays that nobody thought of, or novels. So this generative AI is a fairly new thing, and they're doing it based on natural language prompts, which means you can talk the way you would normally speak, right? You don't have to do it in some kind of computer lingo with a specific grammar in order to make that happen. And like I said, it can generate images, which is really spectacular if you want to look at it this way. There are these large language models that are used to train these products on a large volume of data. It's not like they're going out to the internet and just scooping everything up. There are these just huge models that are used to train, let's say, in the case of OpenAI, there's GPT-4, that's their latest one, and ChatGPT is used to interact with that. But there's other companies as well. Meta, which you probably know as Facebook, has something called, is it Llama? I'm not even sure how to pronounce it. There's DeepMind, which uses Sparrow, and Google, which has products called Bard and Lambda. I watched a 60 Minutes show the other night, and they were talking to the people at Google about their AI and chat program. They didn't even mention OpenAI. It's as if that didn't exist. All they talked about was Bard. Okay, so it was like totally another world, and I've hardly heard Bard mentioned on this campus. Yet that's it's just as big a thing. If you're not sure whether you're using AI at the moment, actually, let me pause for just a second. Let's do that poll that we have just to find out how many users we have out there. Can one of my colleagues run that? This is just simply we want to find out just from the audience how many people are using these chat programs.
So just who is using AI is the poll, Jean?
Yeah, there's one poll.
Oh, because it must have been in the other room that you were in earlier. I have to create it. So just give me a second.
No, here it is. I have it.
Okay, you have it, so I don't have access to it.
Oh, okay. Let's try this. No, oh, that's yours.
Yep, they're my polls from yesterday.
All right. So just if you want to just create one for me for the second, I don't know why I didn't bring it over, but I'm just really asking how many people have, this is yours.
Yep. So hold on, I'm putting one in.
Okay, thanks.
How many?
It's just many. How many people have used ChatGPT, and how many people have used Bing Chat?
Or have you used ChatGPT?
Have you used ChatGPT? Have you used Bing Chat?
Oh, I'm messing that up. Sorry.
But I can keep talking while you're doing that if you want.
Please do.
Okay. So let me talk just for a second about Office Intelligence Services, because that's kind of on a different thing anyway. If you're not sure about whether you used AI or not, you should know that AI is everywhere, and it's built into the Microsoft Office that you're using right now. If you were to look at this is one reason we have PowerPoint, which is right up here. If you click on Design and the Designer tab, if you've ever wondered where these things come from that are on the right side of the screen, and there's that. And the second question was using Bing Chat. So you're working on that?
We're going to have to wait with the second question. So we have 30 people who've responded so far.
Okay.
7 still not.
Okay.
That's only really 4 because
that's fine.
Or 3. So.
But it's kind of half and half.
Results.
Okay. That's all we really need to know. So you're all supposed to be multitasking anyway, And then the other question just is, have you used Bing Chat? But if you look at the right side of the screen here, this is Designer. This is artificial intelligence that's trying to tell me that you don't have a very interesting looking presentation, and it'll go to whatever here and tell me, here's things that would make this look so much prettier, and wouldn't they get so much more out of it if you were to do this? Okay, and this is part of Office Intelligence Services. So we got that there. It's kind of like roughly half and half, right? Another part of Office Intelligence Services, which means I have to close this thing here, is if you go to, okay, now I've got to get underneath here to get to the top of the browser since it's maximized.
Do you want the Bing poll later, Jean?
No, go ahead, but I'm trying to do this since we maximize the screen. I'm trying to get to the top of the top bar of the screen since we maximized it. Okay. Here we go. Okay. So within Word, there's a couple things here that are part of AI. And one, there's this editor, which sits here, and that's AI, and that gives you a score for your editing, which includes spelling, grammar, acronyms, how concise it is, formality, inclusiveness, perspectiveness. Oddly enough, it does some kind of a similarity check, which I don't think is on the scale of the kind of thing that we need here. But it also, the other thing that it'll do is if you go in here and highlight something like this, you can go to translate and just pick any language from here, and you can just go here and it'll quickly translate. Oh, excuse me, it's from English. And it'll translate to whatever you want, to whatever that is. So those are all part of AI. So you've got a lot of this stuff already on your desk. Okay.
Oh, wow.
All right. Plus, that kind of it puts a search engine inside basically anything you have. So we're seeing here, like 4 people have used Bing. Okay. So I've
Yes,
got to
there are
move
the
along.
results.
Okay. I'm getting rid of this. And see, now I've got to add another tab. This maximizing thing is causing me a problem. Okay, so let's just get back to this thing. Okay, why did I upgrade to ChatGPT Plus? Well, I was preparing for this presentation and I started getting these messages in the free version of ChatGPT, and I got these for about a half hour, that every time I would go in, I'd get this oops message. And I decided, okay, I better spring for the $20, at least for a month till I write this presentation, and then we'll see if I want $240 coming out of my pocket or not. But in any case, we'll get through today. Here's some terminology. What is ChatGPT and what is OpenAI? And instead of, well, if you look here, it says ChatGPT is a conversational artificial AI model developed by OpenAI. Just to differentiate, that's what ChatGPT is. OpenAI is the company that created ChatGPT, an artificial intelligence research organization founded in 2015. These are the guys who founded it, okay? Elon Musk, Greg Brockman, Sam Altman, and Ilya Sutskever. Those are the people who founded that. And for one quick moment, I will, in fact, do a slideshow because people want that. And if I do a slideshow, that enables me to get rid of Elon Musk because he left the company. Now we will go back to the non-presentation mode. Right now, Sam Altman is the CEO of OpenAI Systems. What happened is it was founded as a nonprofit and then it became a for-profit company. Okay. Now, this is the big news. Well, let me tell you this first. There are 3 products essentially that that OpenAI developed. One in 2020, they came out with GPT-3, which was trained on large internet data sets. In 2021, they came out with DALL-E, deep learning model to generate digital images. In 2022, they came out with the ChatGPT AI chatbot, which is probably where you started hearing about it. And then in 2023, they came out with GPT-4. And that's included in the GPT Plus, the thing I told you about that costs $20 a month. And they came out with an API so that other people could use their technology. And then getting a little bit ahead of myself, this is 2023, Microsoft, who had actually given $1 billion back in 2019, in 2023, Microsoft throws in $10 billion in 2023. Okay.
Gene, excuse me.
Yes.
Susan Nymark wants to know, what is an API?
Okay, what is an API? An API well, that's the best definition of that. You know what? Let's find out what's an API. Okay. I've got a problem with this thing being enlarged. Okay, let me do something here. openai.com/ChatGPT. Okay, I'm going to log in here. Okay, and I'm going to go into the 3.5 here and just say, what is an API? Okay, it's a set of rules and protocols that allows different software applications to communicate and interact with each other. Does that help?
I think in plain English,
Yes, she
what
said
it
yes.
means,
Plain, okay, what
it allows
is,
other programmers to use the code to create
right,
other apps.
Mhm.
yeah,
In one sentence.
sure. In plain English, an API is like a waiter in a restaurant. Imagine you're sitting at a table, you want to order food instead of going to the kitchen. Well, it goes on and on and on about that. So an API simplifies the communication and interaction between software applications, just like a waiter simplifies the process of ordering food in a restaurant. Interesting. I don't know if that's any better. It's an intermediary, okay?
But at the end of the day, Jean, it means that if you have a technology, other people can use your technology.
Yeah.
So it expands the technology out into
Right.
the world with lots of applications.
Right, right. So in fact, it's like that's how somebody like there's a product I was using Descript, and it says, you know, how can they use OpenAI's product? Well, they get access to they pay for access to OpenAI's API. Okay. How does anybody get access? Because if you didn't have an API, then the only people who could use OpenAI's code would be the manufacturer. If they want to sell their, content, and their product for other people to use it, they have to create an API, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
You.
All right. But that was a good question. And I'm not the best person to answer it. So sometimes a nice thing here is you can kind of have a dialogue. I could even explain this to a 4-year-old, and it would have something that I would understand. Okay, back here. So here's something is I was asking it a natural language input that tells the AI model what to do. Okay, so I was saying, and I'll put this thing over here for a second. I wanted to know, I don't know why it has to do this again, but I wanted to know what was the TV show The Wire about? And it tells me, because this is one of my favorite shows, and it'll tell me all this stuff. But then I'm just going to make a quick point here. What is the TV show The Bear about? Because this is one of my favorite TV shows now, right? And it tells me, I'm sorry, but I couldn't find anything about that. And the reason is because it happened after September 2021. So here's a big defect we know right away in these models is that the data ends in 2021, okay? So there's a problem. And in fact, even if you go, and I have a choice here when I go to this up here where I can say GPT-4, which is the better model, even that ends in 2021, okay? So that's the problem we have to solve. Okay, and we'll figure out how we're going to do that. The other thing is called a problem that we have is something called a hallucination that says if you give a bad prompt, and how do you know it's a bad prompt? Not sure. The content can appear to be real, but it was not actually produced by humans. ChatGPT is capable of coming up with these totally bogus things and presenting them as facts. I was going to talk about prompt engineering, and there's sort of 4 pieces that you can put in a prompt. And one of the things I like about this kind of technology is that it can be pretty creative, so that it's not just limited to, let's get rid of this tab. It's not just limited to scientific stuff. You can tell it, to go and, do something like this, and it's just as comfortable coming up with something that's, that's creative, that's artistic, as it is with coming up with something scientific. And that just sort of gives me sort of this feeling that it's saying that, well, if you just give me all knowledge, the arts are just as intrinsic to knowledge as sciences. So it'll come up with a very nice little 3-paragraph love poem. But in any case, back to our sort of formula for coming up with a prompt. I can give it instructions. Excuse me. Let's get down here. I can give it a question, like, what are good things to say in a love poem? And it'll give me all these sort of ideas about, what might I put in a poem in case I wanted to write one myself. And I don't actually have to wait for all the answers to that. I can stop generating it. Okay, besides those, I can also put examples. So here's something where, of course, it has to use old data. So it's like, all right, my boyfriend really likes these movies. So, well, if you were writing a love poem to him, what would you do? So you can give him all these examples.
That's pretty cool. Jean, you have a couple questions in chat. Let me know when you're ready for those.
Okay, let me just get through this little piece. Okay, and then that'll be a good time. So this is just sort of, so just in summary, you have to give instructions or questions, but this data, the input data, you can also think of that kind of as a context where it's very helpful to sort of like, tell me something about, the person, or, just give me a context, I am a 4th grader, or this is going to be used as something or other, and then give some examples of what you're looking for. And if you do all that, you're going to get a much better, you'll get a much better output than if you just say, give me this, just write me a poem, or something. The more information you give it. And the other thing is that you can, once you get it, if I got it back, something like this, I could go back and say something like, could you do that in, 3 stanzas? And it would say, and you could just give it feedback, and it, would do the same thing. So you continue on a chat until you click this thing up here that says new chat. You're in fact kind of in a dialogue with which is why it's called a chat. Okay. And in fact, if you do something and it doesn't follow your instructions, which actually I didn't show you that, but if you're using the 3.5 model, I found that it doesn't always do what you ask it to do. You can go and say, no, that's not what I wanted, and it'll apologize, and then give you, and try again. So, okay, questions from Linda.
Okay, Jean, Alberto asks, Bard is connected to the internet, thus it is current data, correct?
Okay, I'll have to take his word for that.
Well, he's asking.
Okay, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I haven't worked with Bard yet.
And then Irene was asking, what is the difference between ChatGPT 4 and 3.5 version?
Okay, ChatGPT 4 and 3.5 version. Let me skip down a few slides here. Okay, let me let me go through two things. Okay, so GPT-4 was trained through 621. Okay, how do I get it? And it's fine. My question here is, how do I get ChatGPT to include internet data after 621? So let me answer another question first, and then do Irene's question. Let me talk about the difference between the two versions of ChatGPT and then the two versions of the model that they rely on. Is that fair? Okay, we'll take that as a yes. Okay, so ChatGPT, there's a free version of ChatGPT, and then there's what's called ChatGPT Plus. And if you're looking at what I had over here, I'm using ChatGPT Plus. And we know that, for example, because I have GPT-4, and I would not have access to GPT-4 without it. But there's more than that. ChatGPT is accessible to everybody, while GPT Plus requires a monthly subscription, which right now is $20 a month. You have priority access with GPT Plus. You don't get that message that I got that said, you know, kind of, sorry, we're really kind of busy right now. There's faster response time. So if you're trying to have a conversation where you're going back and forth with chat, it's much quicker if you're using the plus $20 a month model. There's an increased usage limit. You get a bigger quota of how many, they sometimes set rate, they'll set a rate limit that sort of says, well, you can only do this many, you know, we can only give you this many, you know, chats, you know, whatever. But if you're a plus user, they'll give you more. And then there's also dedicated customer support for the ChatGPT Plus. So that's what you get for your $240 a year. So just keep that number in mind. To get to Irene's question, which I think it was, is what's the difference between 3.5 and GPT-4? And in fact, if you're in Plus, for which you're paying $20 a month, you still have access to both of these. So in some cases, you might still opt for the 3.5, but the size is GPT-4 is a bigger model size. So whereas 3.5 has 175 billion parameters, GPT-4 has 1 trillion. Okay, so it has more information and can handle more complex tasks. Okay, it's faster in generating responses, and on the other hand, there's an hourly prompt restriction. So when you go into GPT-4, which I'm in 4 here, let's see. I don't know if they're going to tell me this now, but if I go into a new chat, I may have to be out of it and come into it. When I come into this, let's see, if I go to, let's see, if I go into GPT-4, right now it says GPT-4 currently has a cap of 25 messages every 3 hours, okay? So you don't get that in 3.5. If you go to 3.5 and you're using the older model, but as plus, you don't get a restriction. If you go into the 4, you're going to get that you can only do 25 messages every 3 hours. So you're paying a premium, but you do get an hourly prompt restriction. GPT-4 is more accurate than 3.5 in terms of factual correctness, coherence, and contextual relevance. Can connect the dots better. I've seen stuff in terms of hallucination, stuff that I know that's wrong, or in fact, I get the answer in 3.5 and checked it in 4, and 4 was correct. And capabilities. GPT-4 is better in terms of understanding your natural language. And GPT-4 is actually capable of accepting both text and image inputs, so that if you're using, I'm assuming therefore meaning that something like, well, you'll see this a little bit later, but in theory, GPT-4, you can, if you're creating a program and therefore with the APIs, you'd have to be using GPT-4. They mentioned down here, and it's going off the slides, that GPT 3.5 took the uniform bar exam and got the 10th percentile, whereas GPT-4 took the bar exam and came in the 90th percentile. So does that give you an idea, Irene? Okay, let me show you something about plugins, because this is something you may not have seen. Let's get, this thing. Okay, so there's a couple of places you can get plugins, and I have to go to GPT-4 to get plugins. And I go down here, I don't know if you can see the lower left of the screen. It's kind of hard to see that. This is where it would be better if I was not in full screen mode. So let me raise that up a little. Okay, can you see my name in the lower left-hand corner?
Yes.
Okay, if you click on the three dots here, you'll see settings. And settings, you'll see beta features. And one of them says, try a version of ChatGPT that knows when and how to use third-party plugins that you enable. If I click on that, I'm in Chrome on purpose here. And it says, now I can use some plugins. And there's two places right now in Chrome where I can get some plugins. One of them is if I point here, I can go to plugins, okay? And there's a couple of them that I've enabled, and these are just examples. One of them was, I said, okay, chat MDB. That's and this is just for examples. I'm not saying like, oh, wow, everybody should get this one. But let's just say I want a chat program that also accesses the Internet Movie Database, right? Okay. Everybody must have that, right? So do people know who Trent Reznor is? Okay, if you don't know, I'll say this is a guy. He's the head of Nine Inch Nails. Okay, so I say, tell me, this is without the plugin, about Trent Reznor's, you gotta spell him right, movie career. Okay, and it tells me that he worked as a composer, blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. And a couple of on-screen appearances. But as of 2021, he's active in the film industry, whatever. Okay, so but I know, because if I go up and do a new chat and say, I want to use that plugin, again, this is just for illustrative purposes, and I say, I want it also to search, the Internet Movie Database, and I say, let's see, it should be able to pick that up. See, it's going to make me, now that I put the plugin, it's going to make me repeat that. Let's stop generating. Okay, model plugins. I don't want to regenerate the response. Okay. This is frustrating. You have to do a new chat. You have to go to plugins. You have to activate that, and then you have to paste this in here. And it's okay, now it's using ChatTMB. And that's just an example of a plugin. And now it starts giving me all these details. Okay, so I think you got the picture. That's a plugin. One other plugin, if I do a new chat that I just did for illustrative purposes, was Listen Notes. This one would give me, and we don't have to do that now, this gives me a search engine that is podcasts, search for podcasts, okay? So for example, that ordinarily you could not get a podcast about this, but let me say, tell me about podcasts about the war in Ukraine. And you would not expect chat to be able to do that. But since this is going to this additional database, so this is how these plugins are ways that you can get around that limitation. And it's probably especially useful if you have some data that's pre the GPT model and some post, so that you get a combination of the two. But that gives you an idea. Now, just to show you, if I go and look at that, look at the plugins here, there is a plugin store, which is right here. And you'll see here are some popular plugins. They have a list of new plugins. But if you go to all plugins, you'll see, let's see. So it goes up to 89 times 8 on a screen, okay? So 500 something then, right? And you can try those. Another Benny for getting, for spending $240 a year. But wait, there's more, because it's not limited to just the plugin store, okay? It's not like an iPhone where you can't go outside. There are also plugins that live inside extensions to Chrome. And there were a couple of them I tried here. One of them is ChatGPT with internet access. So it says augment your ChatGPT prompts with relevant web search results through web browsing. So if I put that one on, okay, I can then go back here, and if I refresh this, I now have at the bottom of my screen web access, okay, which means I can go and say, depending how many results I want to have, I can do a search. Anybody got an idea for a search that would sort of cross the two?
Gene, I have a quick question, and
Yeah.
also just a 15-minute left warning.
All right.
So Louise asks, are there security concerns about adding plugins? I thought that was a good question. Like, how do you know which plugins are safe?
Well, I guess I'm not gonna know for sure, but I'm guessing that you would hope that OpenAI has vetted what's on their plugin store and that Chrome has vetted what's on the Chrome store. But that's all I can say. I don't know. That's all. That's my only thought. I can't swear to anything more than that. That's all I can tell you. That's all I can say.
I think that those were good answers. Thank you.
Okay, anybody have a query as to how something that would span? I mean, one thing I thought immediately was tell me about Joe Biden's political career, because that's going to span the two. I'm a first grader. Okay, so he's a senator for almost 40 years, then he became the vice president, and in 2021 he campaigned that. All right, so you wouldn't get actually, we would have crossed 621. No, that wouldn't have done it. But anyway, you see what I mean. I should have picked something about, show, what's Donald Trump's history of criminal activity or something. But I don't know. But anyway, this does give you that. The other one that I picked over here was, as far as the extension store, manage extensions, was this thing called YouTube and article summary. And again, I had to go back here and I had to do this. And what I did on this one was this added, I said, here's Barack Obama's 2006 commencement speech. And I asked for a transcript and summary, and then an AI summary. So I think I clicked here. I had to click here first, right? It should open a tab. Let's see. Okay, that's the transcript and summary. Where's the AI summary? Let's see, did I not activate that? Oh, sorry, it's extensions. Oh, that should be on. I'm not sure why that's not working right now.
Maybe the one at the top bar, Gene, near the
Here we
star
go.
for the favorites.
Probably didn't refresh it. Okay, but here it is. Okay, so it's doing in bullet points it did a summary of the speech, and then 5 bullet points, it summarized it. Or I think I changed that to 10, right? So anyway, what that one will do is it'll go out, it'll put that little plug-in thing into YouTube, and then it'll summarize in bullet points a transcript of the YouTube. Anyway, those are 2 ways to get plugins. The other thing I wanted to show you, since we're running out of time, is, actually, we're exactly what I needed to do. I need to get my Edge browser over here. I wanted to make sure that you saw this. Okay, now I'm in Edge. Okay, and you remember I said that Microsoft gave $19 billion, or no, it was $11 billion, or whatever it was, a lot of money. They're a majority holder. I should have seen. Okay, I'm Bing, your AI-powered co-pilot for the web. Okay, so now I get these, welcome to the new Bing, and I've searched, and it is an AI-powered search, but it's also got Bing Chat. Now, this is the big thing about Bing Chat, is that Bing Chat is free, okay? Doesn't cost you $240 a year. And if I ask it, Bing Chat is, does Bing Chat use GPT-4? And this is GPT-4 and from the root. Oh, that's useful. Now that's funny because when I asked that this morning, it said that it did. Okay. Which it has to, because how else would it be able to do this? Okay. Bing chat, use open AI's GPT-4 model. Oh, then that was funny.
Gene,
Yeah,
I'm looking and I'm reading what it says in your first search. I'm not sure if Bing Chat uses GPT-4, but I think it's very impressive technology.
yeah,
I find that humorous, actually.
yeah. So do they. Because when I asked it this morning, it said that it did use it. Now, here's another interesting thing. What happens if I say, create a photo of a Norwegian forest cat? Remember, this is a chat prompt. This is not.
Milka was asking, what does it mean by 1 of 30? Are there 30 answers?
That's a good question too. No, I think it's I think it's a limit that they're setting on something here. Okay, so it's creating images from the chat prompt powered by DALL-E, which on the other day, Ellen, you had to go to the image creator to use this, but here it's letting you do image creator right from their Bing chat, which is interesting. But we know
That
they use
cat looks
OpenAI.
pretty real to me. That looks like a real cat, doesn't it?
Yeah. So now this is something I asked it about plugins, and it told me that there are plugins in Bing Chat, and it lists a whole bunch of them, but they said they're just kind of rolling those ones out. But this is, let's see. Oh, here was one. This is one I liked since I'm, okay. Okay, look at this one though. Yes, Bing Chat uses the GPT-4 language model developed by OpenAI to generate natural language responses on user input. It almost makes you think you're dealing with some kind of support organization where you get different answers depending who you get. But I think to me, it's pretty obvious that this is the same thing as GPT-4 and ChatGPT Plus. So anyway, I just want to bring this to people's attention only because Microsoft is so invested in them. They're like the majority owners of OpenAI, and this is free. So it's just something to follow. It's something, if you're writing a policy about and you say just you can't use ChatGPT, know that your students might be using this because it doesn't cost them anything. But also know that if you want them to use something and you want them to use the latest technology, don't expect them to spend $240 a year or yourselves. This is something to be aware of. I'm just going to stop here only because there's only a few minutes left.